ever dealt with a migraine, you know they can be debilitating for hours and sometimes days. Today we have Dr. DeRoos, a pediatric neurologist with the Spectrum Health Medical Group. And so we're talking a little bit about migraines, but we're also talking about them in young people. How is it different in a young person than maybe an adult?
Good morning, thank you. And in children, it can be very different than adults. As young as a toddler or an infant can have a headache, and so you don't really even know they're having a migraine. They can have unusual neurologic manifestations that go with it. For example, they can have just vomiting, they can have weird posturing, head turning. So there's a variety of different things. We call it torticollis or vertigo, and those can be precursors to having migraines as teenagers and adults. So there's a lot of unusual manifestations that go with migraines in kids, and then it can really change over time.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up points of the very young when they aren't yet able to really talk about how they're feeling. Right. That might be a little bit challenging, so parents really need to be on alert.
Yes, and other things are often tried, such as reflux medicines or different things, and then finally it comes to us and we put the pieces together and we can usually figure it out.
Yeah, I think as adults we think so much about our environment and, oh, I have stress in my job, or maybe I'm having a little friction with some person and that's the cause of my head aching. Migraines are a little bit different, and then you think about young people who don't necessarily have those particular stresses yet. And what are some of the things that can really trigger migraines in a young person if they don't have what we typically might think of triggers as adults?
Well, 90% of teenagers state that stress is a trigger for the migraine. So, and I would even argue that it's more stressful being a teenager than an adult. I had to pick out what colored tie I was going to wear today, but they have to deal with the stress of homework, hormonal changes, lack of sleep,
peer pressure,
interpersonal relationships, maybe a teacher they don't like. So they have a lot more amplified stress than we do in some ways.
Yeah, but there's something with your biological makeup too that also plays a role in this. How is that? Maybe you're just born with a certain tendency?
There's no gene, but it definitely tends to run in families. And it also tends to be more common in girls and women than boys and males. And so if boys or teenage boys develop migraines, oftentimes it goes away when they become an adult. And it often goes away for girls also, but not quite as frequently.
So let's talk about some treatment options. We know as parents, when we go in and we talk with a doctor or an expert such as yourself, that's always a concern because our children are growing, they're changing, and we're kind of cautious about what we give them.
Right, right. And the first thing we like to talk about is the lifestyle, because we'd prefer not to use medications if we don't have to. So we want to see if they're sleeping well, if they are eating well, not skipping meals, drinking plenty of water, things like that. And then you can't eliminate stress from your life, but you can learn how to deal with it better.
Yeah.
So those are the things we focus on the most.
Yeah. So how do you know when it's time to see a doctor about migraines or headaches that your child may be having?
I think that's different for everybody. Some people just want to plow through, but I think if you look at it as you have a cutoff for how disabling it is for you, how much school you're missing, how miserable you're feeling, how often you're unable to participate in activities that you really love. Yeah. If your family tells you that you're too cranky. I mean, so little subtle things like that. And oftentimes it may not be real obvious because it's been going on for so long. So you have to try to look at it somewhat objectively.
Yeah, well, that's all been very good information because, of course, we want our kids to feel and do their very best every day.
Right, absolutely.
And so we have your contact information here on the screen. We'll also put it online. So if anybody has any questions and they want to contact you or Spectrum Health, they can do that.
And we do have a headache clinic. And in our headache clinic, we have a physician, one of the neurologists, or Dr. Langang, who's most frequently there, and a psychologist is also available.
Great resource. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be right back with more at West.